Good evening and welcome to the Heritage Preservation Board's meeting for Monday, October 10th, 2016. Can I have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Member Loving. Member Christiansen.
Here.
Member Sussman.
Here.
Member Birdman.
Here.
Member Kelly.
Here.
Member Nemo.
Here.
Member Perzer. Member
Here.
Nemerov.
Here.
Thank you.
Member Moore is here as well.
Thank you.
So is Member McClellan.
Thank you.
Just because we're not used to the microphones, I'm glad that we're all present. Excellent. Section 3 of the agenda is approval of the meeting agenda. Any comments or motions to approve?
I move to approve.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Passed. Section 4, approval of the meeting minutes from September 13th, 2016. Hopefully everyone had a chance to read those. They're excellent minutes, by the way. A lot of information from last month's meeting. Any comments, revisions? Not hearing any. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Section 5 is community comment, and since we do have community members here, I'll read it all out loud. During community comment, the Board Commission will invite residents to share relevant issues or concerns. Individuals must limit their comments to 3 minutes. The chair may limit the number of speakers on the same issue in the interest of time and topic. Generally speaking, items that are elsewhere on tonight's agenda may not be addressed during community comment. Individuals should not expect the chair or Board Commission members to respond to their comments tonight. Instead, the Board Commission might refer to the matter to staff for consideration at a future meeting. Was there anybody here this evening that wanted to have a community comment other than things that are on the agenda this evening? Okay, thank you. When the time comes to where someone does want to have a comment about the business in front of the commission, I will ask you to please come to one of the podiums here, speak directly into the microphone, give your name, address, and then you'll have up to 3 minutes to provide your comments. Any questions? Thank you. Okay, number 6, A. We're going to address the certificate of appropriateness for 4608 Casco Avenue, H16-8.
Thank you. The subject property is located on the west side of the 4600 block of Casco Avenue. The existing home is a contemporary style constructed in 1977. A front-loading attached garage is located on the east elevation of the home. The certificate of appropriateness request involves demolishing the existing home with the intention of building a new home with an attached garage meeting the district's plan of treatment criteria. The existing home is not classified as an historic resource since it was not constructed during the district's period of significance, which was 1924 to 1944. Thus, its demolition is not an issue. However, construction of a replacement home is subject to the Heritage Preservation Board review and approval. The review process for a replacement home of a non-historic resource is a two-step process. The Heritage Preservation Board reviewed the preliminary plan at their September 13th meeting, and at which time they heard comments from both the applicant as well as from the public. The Heritage Preservation Board took no action at that time, but rather provided the applicant with feedback relative to suggested changes to the plan. The plans under consideration this evening fulfill the final step of the process, with the plans representing the applicant's consideration of the board's feedback by reflecting the following changes. The height to peak and eave have been lowered by 10.5 inches. Cedar shake siding on the second story was replaced with stucco. They changed the front elevation to celebrate the entry by eliminating the dining room entrance stoop, columns, and French doors. And they modified the balcony to a structurally supported design to lighten its massing. And I would like to note that the balcony as depicted extends 4 feet from the front facade, and the maximum intrusion into the front setback for an overhang is 3 feet. Thus, the final approval should reflect the front balcony extending no further than 3 feet from the front building wall. This is a streetscape showing the subject home, replacement home, relative to the home to the north and the south. And a similar streetscape was provided at the September 13th meeting. But as you can see, this rendition shows the lowered peak and the lower eaves, and then also the cedar shake shingles are no longer at the top, and then the change double hung windows in the dining room instead of French doors. Here is just the front facade reflecting those changes that I had called out. Also, the door originally had been all glass, and here now you can see it does have a panel on the bottom. This is the rear elevation, or the west elevation. Here you see the garage doors. This is an entryway, and there will be, because the garage is entered from the west, they do have the ability to have some lawn space here outside these doors. This is the south elevation, and this is along the driveway. So you can see the driveways along here, and then they'd come in and pull in and park thusly. This is the balcony, which is over the bedroom and on top of the dining room. And as I stated, it would be reduced by a foot. And here's the north elevation. There you see the balcony there. This is the garage. This is a survey of the proposed dwelling as they are proposing. You can see the driveway along here. This survey also shows the drainage as they are proposing it, going down the driveway and then down along the north side to Casco Avenue. The floor plans are provided just to give us a good idea of why windows are placed where they are and the like. Here you can see this is the front entry, the reception area in the portico. Here's their dining room and with the double hung windows now. And then the garage off a mudroom. This is the upper level plan. Here is the bedroom that has the balcony. The balcony is shown to be 4 feet by 11 feet 6, so it should be 3 feet. And then the master bath is over the garage. These final plans have been reviewed by preservation consultant Robert Vogel, who determined that the design of the new home complies with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and the guidelines for new construction in the Country Club District's plan of treatment. Mr. Vogel also found that the proposed home is compatible with the historic character of the district and will cause no harm to adjacent historic homes, which is also a requirement of the plan of treatment. Staff is in agreement with consultant Vogel's evaluation and recommends approval of the proposed new home at 4608 Casco Avenue. Findings supporting the recommendation for approval include the final plans reflect changes suggested by the Heritage Preservation Board during the preliminary review at the September 13, 2016 meeting. The applicant has met all the procedural requirements required for the replacement of a non-historic resource in the Country Club District. The proposed plan meets the criteria set out in the design review guidelines of the Country Club District's plan of treatment. And the proposed new house will be visually compatible with the historic period revival style homes in the neighborhood. It should not detract from their historic character. Approval is conditioned on the following: plans dated September 21st, 2016, with the front balcony corrected to a 3-foot depth, a sign not to exceed 6 square feet with a rendering of the approved home displayed on the property, a year-built plaque to be displayed on the home. The Heritage Preservation Board staff liaison is provided a final inspection of the home prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, and photographs of all elevations of the new construction shall be provided once the house is completed. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Joyce regarding this amended proposal? Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to have a word or say anything about this, or should we invite anybody from the community to take? If anyone from the community would like to step forward and provide any comments? Thank you, sir. Again, please speak into the microphone with your name and your address, please.
Stuart Adler, 4610 Casco, the property to the south. Appreciate the new plans and the roof and the eave lines and the effort that was put in there. A couple questions. One was our neighbors to the north side of the property can't be here, the Corslands, but I know they'd asked questions about the north side, particularly around the garage, potentially putting in an eyebrow window or something to break up the mass on the north perspective. There's a big mass of that garage with no detail on that. So there's a question from them on that, so I'll represent that. The second thing is, if I understand that east face, there appears to be downspouts with chains to direct water. Is that correct? So I just would like to hear from the planners as to gutters and the treatment of the water. I saw the drainage layout on the overhead projection, but I don't see gutters anywhere. And what's the plan for water direction for the property?
Thank you. As far as the garage and the north side, I mean, feel free, please, as the architect, come on up. I'm not quite sure that in and of itself is a reviewable element of the plans from the HPB's perspective, is it?
Chair Birdman, the neighbors to the north are the Corslands, and they did submit an email to your attention that was included in your packet.
Okay.
And she did address on the north side, Mrs. Corsland suggested perhaps windows, which had been shown on the garage in the preliminary plan, be included in this plan as well to break up that long wall.
Okay. Please say your name and where you're from.
My name is Andrea Swan, and I am an architect, and I'm from here, from Minnesota. Okay, so in terms of the gutters, we are doing gutters. We have not planned where the downspouts are going to go. I guess that's the short answer. We have decorative rain chains just at the front entry, the front entry areas, which are really just decorative, and they're not serving a lot of water. Basically, the balcony itself is what they're serving. We will have round downspouts. I do not know where they're going to go yet, I guess is the short answer. We did have windows at the garage facing north. With every opportunity, we take development further, and in terms of storage for the garage, we felt that we didn't have a lot because we already have 3 windows facing south, which would face this grass court that we're trying to create for this property owner. So for storage reasons, we thought it'd be sacred territory on that north wall of the garage, so we took the windows out. I don't know where to go from here, so I guess we look for your counsel on the neighbor's request.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other community comments on this particular submission? Not hearing any. I'll bring it back up to the board. Conversation, comments, questions about the proposal?
I remember, Birdman, I have a question about the notes on the east elevation, so that would be the front. And I'm not sure, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I don't know what was discussed, but it says stucco siding, and does that mean it's panels of stucco, or is that actually stucco? Is it a panelized system, or is it a stucco? Okay.
Can you step forward and maybe just come so we can make sure it gets recorded properly? Thank you, sir.
Dan Schaefer with Landmark. Yeah, it's stucco,
Okay.
like real stucco.
Then I would probably call it stucco and not stucco siding. That's a little bit misleading, because as an architect, I would assume that siding would have some type of pattern to it, and in that case, I would want to see how it would be panelized. But if it's stucco, then it's a monolithic material, so I would just call it stucco.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Chesler?
I just wanted to thank the applicant for their responsiveness to the comments that had come up in the previous review.
Yeah, thanks.
I would echo that. I think this process that we've gone through over the last
Yeah, it was
couple
great.
months is great, and I think your addressing of those issues with this plan that you've put forward is a reflection of that. So I appreciate that very much. Any other comments?
I have a question, Chairman Berman. I don't have the plan of treatment in front of me like I like to have, and I know when we're approving a garage, a standalone garage, there are certain standards that have to comply as far as a wall. I think if it's over 20 feet, there can't be a wall without any kind of window if it faces the neighbor. So when it's a new entire home and the garage is part and parcel of that home, are we still tasked with approving what the side of the garage looks like? To the question from the neighbor on the north.
That was similarly my question. I think I'd ask staff as to, given the plans that have been presented to us and how it's done, is that really an area of our preview, given the plan of treatment, to review?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I guess the question there is, if that is, then the comments that have been provided by the neighbors, or to the commentary that's been provided, is there more dialogue and consideration from the board that we want to talk about?
And do we have, this is so small, I can't see, how long is that space?
Joyce, would you mind maybe going to the north elevation so we can pull it up? I think that's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And isn't
24.
First floor. It's 20 by 19. 20?
Yeah, 20 feet.
It's about 20 feet. Typically, what we require is to have some type of articulation. It isn't necessarily windows, but sometimes it's just a band of just something to break up that line. So to say if they do need storage in that garage, which is understandable, perhaps there's something else that they could provide to break up that long wall?
Joyce, in this case, they've bumped out the powder room a little bit, so the facade actually changes plane, and I think that's obviously a building code thing too. But it's very hard to tell those things on elevation, but if you look at it in plan, you can see they've bumped it out.
Correct. Would be right in this area. That looks like a closet area, perhaps?
So this outcropping would render it conforming to our plan of treatment because it has some articulation within the 20, if it's over 20 feet. Is that what we can
Well,
take
garage,
from this?
it's a 16-foot building wall, has to have some type of articulation, is how the garage specifications are written in the plan of treatment. But it's up to the determination of the board whether or not that 20-foot length is, without windows or whatever, is in need of some attention.
So I guess the question there is that with the board, this issue's been raised, it's been commented on. What are opinions, or what does the board want to take up a consideration of making a recommendation to do something with that, or are we satisfied with that and the rest of the project?
Because you've got the band here breaking up.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I'm Lois Peterson. I live at 4604 Casco, next to the Corslands, who aren't here. And I just wanted to say that the Corslands kitchen and family room, where they spend a lot of time, is where they look at that garage. And that's why they wanted some relief from all that space.
Great, thank you very much.
Is there a landscape plan for this project? A landscape architect or a landscape
There-
plan?
A landscape plan was provided with a landscape plan was provided for the preliminary plan, and it's unchanged with the exception of the terrace in the front, on the front that was off the dining room.
Okay, so can you remind me what the landscape plan is for that elevation? What will be
The north
happening there
elevation?
at the north? What the landscape design is for the north elevation? Yeah.
It's basically rock edge and probably grasses based on the design right now. You know, something maintenance-free on that side, the setback's so tight that, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, guys, if it's a super big deal, we can throw windows back in there. I mean, it's a, you know, most people with privacy inside their garages too, they don't like windows everywhere, so. But we'd probably put just regular double hungs, because I don't want anything high, just to do it right, so.
Well, again, I think that's the question before us. I need to hear from the board as to whether or not they feel that that would be a recommendation that would need to be changed in order to make this go forward. If it is, let's discuss it. If it's not, then we need to then have other discussion about the proposal or need to take an action on it.
I would recommend that, being especially that you're willing to work with the neighborhood and want to make sure that you're good neighbors and that there is some concern from the people that live next door, and it's their view, that my recommendation would be to add some windows.
Okay.
That's fine.
What does everybody else think? I mean, that I appreciate.
Maybe we take, you know, we're taking it from the future homeowner's perspective as well, going, you know, I don't want to live in my garage in a fishbowl, but we need to go build this thing too, so.
Absolutely. So I guess I'm just curious. I appreciate the recommendation. Does the rest of the board feel that that should be a part of the recommendation as we take action?
Considering we've heard from a neighbor and this is a concern, and we're at this stage, I would also appreciate if they could throw in a couple windows for this one.
Yep.
I just want to make sure we all understand, though, that if we add windows to a garage, we are going to be looking into a garage.
Right.
So adding some type of articulation to this facade is one thing. Adding windows into a garage is a different thing. So I'm strongly in favor of listening to the neighbors and doing something here, but I'm not sure adding windows is the right decision. So, I mean, maybe it's adding some type of decorative element or something, panelizing the stucco, or some type of what they've already done where they've changed the plane. Before we completely decide to add windows into a garage, I think we should talk more.
This is why I wanted to make sure we had dialogue about this, because I don't think it's just to satisfy a particular aesthetic concern. I don't necessarily think that's the sole reason why we should then do something. Mr. Sussman, did you want to say something?
The window could be treated in such a way that there would be privacy from the garage side. So the neighbor would be looking at a window at the exterior, but there could be some window covering or other material to block the view.
We can film them, I mean, if you want them, yeah.
Okay. I guess the question, for us is really, do we want to say we want to amend this proposal as it's stated here and take a voted position as to whether or not we want windows with some privacy component to be added to this recommendation? Because that's what we're going to need to do in order to move this forward. It's not just a dialogue. We have to actually have an action. So do I have a proposal that we can vote on?
Chair Bergman, what you could do is move the conditions that staff recommended with an additional condition for the windows.
Okay. Do I have anybody willing to step up to do that?
I move that there is an additional condition for some kind of articulation, and if it's a window, that it maybe has some kind of film treatment.
Okay. So the motion would then be as submitted with an amendment to that to provide some type of articulation in this sort of 20 20-foot space that's open, whether that's a window with some privacy component to it or some other articulation that would meet from that, still pending staff's approval for making that happen. But then we would move the COA forward based on that. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to the board and
All
staff.
right. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Item 6B on the agenda is the 2016 Certified Local Government Annual Report.
Thank you. Thank you. Annually, we do a report for the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office. And being that this is our once-a-year televised meeting, I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of share with people who might be watching our meeting on TV, explaining a little bit about what heritage preservation is all about in Edina and what your mission and goals and responsibilities have been. So I put together this little PowerPoint to go along with the annual report that you've received in your packets. The mission and responsibilities for the Heritage Preservation Board started back in 1975. And it was created to preserve Edina's heritage resources by protecting historically significant buildings, sites, structures, objects, and districts. They were to develop and maintain a preservation plan, and currently it's found as the heritage preservation element in the city's comprehensive plan. And we create an annual work plan, which is approved by the City Council that directs the tasks of the Heritage Preservation Board, because like all boards and commissions with the city, we are advisory to the City Council. The goals of the Heritage Preservation Board, there are 4 of them. The first is to ensure Edina will be a distinctive and recognizable community committed to preservation of historic buildings and sites that provide physical links to the past and foster a sense of community identity. We preserve historically significant buildings, sites, structures, objects, and districts as functional, useful parts of the modern city so that they will be the focus of important education, edification, recreation, and economic development activities. We provide historic property owners and the neighborhood groups with technical assistance and education in historic preservation. And we sponsor heritage preservation programs that stress empowerment of individuals and communities through stewardship, advocacy, education, and partnership. We are a certified local government. And the Certified Local Government, or CLG, is a nationwide program that seeks to encourage and expand local involvement in preservation issues through a partnership with the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office. The benefit of being a CLG city, it enables the Heritage Preservation Board to apply for federal matching grants to assist in funding preservation activities to include surveys, inventories, preservation plans, building reuse studies, design guidelines, and public education. The responsibilities that we have as a certified local government include establish and maintain a qualified Heritage Preservation Board with an historic preservation ordinance that meets federal standards. We must maintain a system for identifying historic properties, enforce appropriate legislation for designation and protection of historic properties, provide for public participation in the local preservation program, play a role in nominating properties for the National Register of Historic Places, and perform other agreed-upon functions delegated by the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office. As a certified local government, an annual report is required, and it covers their fiscal year, which is from October 1 through September 30th. And the report that you had in your packet is for the 2016 activities. The report must include local designation of preservation sites, a listing of the certificates of appropriateness requests that had been addressed for the previous year, the Heritage Preservation Board membership roster, the National Register nominations, local inventories and studies, assurances for public participation and record retention, and work plan activities, both current and future. Now, for 2016, you reviewed 10 certificates of appropriateness for the Country Club District. 6 were for detached garages. You're becoming very good at detached garages. As Member Kelly recalled our requirements. There were 2 certificates of appropriateness for new front entry porticos. One for a change to a previously approved certificate of appropriateness, because whenever you approve a plan, it's for the plans that are presented. And once they get going with their permitting process, sometimes plans change. And if that's the case, then the board needs to be aware of the change, and if the change is significant enough, provide their approval. And lastly, the most recent one you heard this evening was the final for a new replacement home at 4608 Casco Avenue. Wooddale Bridge was an important part of your 2016. Not only was it designated a National Register of Historic Places, and it was the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office took that application forward, and it also received Edina Heritage Landmark status. And the significance of the Wooddale Bridge, and that's on Wooddale Avenue over Minnehaha Creek, just west of St. Stephen's Church. That bridge was built in 1937 as part of the WPA, which is the Works Progress Administration, and the city. They worked together on that. It's a multi-plate masonry arch bridge. It's a significant transportation structure, and it retains the historic integrity. Now, the National Register of Historic Places it's national, so that's a big deal. But the thing about the National Register is there's no protections provided with the National Register. They depend on the local government to do that protection. That's why we move forward with the local designation, because as part of our designation, we have a plan of treatment. And when it was designated, the plan of treatment called out how the bridge will be preserved into the future. So it's got dual protections, so to speak, and I commend you on that activity this year. We had a Heritage Award. We do this every year, and this is, I think, the 13th award, and it was for 5201 Wooddale Avenue. It was for the Vedas home. The home on the left is the original home built in 1937. The Vedas are only the second owners, and when they purchased, this is the main home here, and here you can see the main home, but it was on a double lot, and everything to the south, or to the right, is the addition. And people had come in when the house was on the market saying, oh, we want to tear this house down and build a great big house on the lot. And fortunately, the Vedas came in, appreciated the architectural style of the home, and purchased it with the plan of adding on with Ray Camp Larson Architects. And so it was quite a wonderful award that the board gave to the Vedas and to Ray Camp Larson. And just for your information, the About Town magazine for the fall issue is highlighting this Heritage Award on pages 34, 35, and 36, so you might want to look it up. And we take an annual tour every summer, and this year we did the west side of the Country Club District. And this is a photo from the 1930s. This is Edgebrook Place, here's Minnehaha Creek, Browndale Avenue, and then we've got Moreland and Edina Boulevard and Wooddale. That encompassed our tour. And what was interesting about it, you had entertained quite a few certificates of appropriateness along that, that trail. And so it was interesting for you to see the houses once they'd been completed and the impact that the certificate of appropriateness had on the property. Now, we've just submitted our work plan for 2017 to the City Council, and they are considering what we have on our work plan, and we will hear in December whether or not they've accepted it. But the main focus for 2017 will, of course, be to continue evaluating certificates of appropriateness applications and also potential landmark designations. And we will promote heritage preservation in the community through education, and that would include our Heritage Award, and it'll include the tours that we take in the summer. And we're hoping to designate 6909 Hillcrest Lane a heritage landmark property in the coming year. And then lastly, and this is really going to consume a lot of your efforts, will be to update the heritage preservation element of our comprehensive plan. And this is something that is being done through just about every department in the city, the health department, engineering, park. But we're fortunate that we can have a say with heritage preservation. Not all comp plans for every city have a heritage preservation element in their comp plans. So I think it really does make Edina's land use and housing plan that much richer to have these heritage preservation components. And what you're going to be asked to do is to update conditions in the inventory that's currently part of the plan. We'll identify new trends and challenges, and we will review and update goals and policies. And with that, any questions or comments about the year in review?
Thank you very much, Joyce. That was a great review of what we try to do here at the HPB. The next item on the agenda is Section 6C, election of a new vice chairman. Due to the former vice chairman, Ryan Weber, leaving the HPB, a new vice chairman to serve the remaining 2016 term is required. This item was continued from our last agenda to this agenda. Do I have any nominations for vice chairman, or woman for that matter?
I would like to nominate Bob Moore.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Do I have a second for the nomination of Bob Moore?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Welcome back
Thank you.
to being vice chairman. One point of clarification, it does say for the remaining 2016 term. Does that actually mean, Joyce, that that's only until December 31st?
No, the term lasts until
March or May. And then we'll do it again. Got it. Thank you very much. All right. Section 7 of the agenda, correspondence and petitions. Did we have any?
No.
No. Excellent. Section 8, chair and member comments. Are there any comments from any members for tonight? Mr. Moore?
I have one. This past Friday evening, our Southdale exhibit opened at the Edina Historical Society. We had a preview with about 150 people in attendance. And I would like to extend an invitation to the HPB that perhaps November or December we could hold a meeting over there so everybody could see it.
Lovely.
So if it works out for certificates of appropriateness, not showing up for a meeting, hopefully we can do that. And I'll work with Joyce to coordinate as scheduled.
Excellent. Thank you.
Member, Chair Birdman, I have a comment too. So last Friday, I went to the Vision Edina seminar. It was hosted by the city, and they had it at they had a lunch seminar for board members at the YMCA. They had a engineer turned planner talk about basically roads and road design in the country and how to kind of change road design so that it was more pedestrian friendly. So there was a lot of good discussion on the way we've designed our roads in Edina to date and how we can move forward to have more kind of living roads with more trees and more kind of enjoyable spaces for people. And from that, I started looking back at Jane Jacobs' work, and Jane Jacobs is a very famous planner, and she is offering. She has this. It was the anniversary of her 100 year from her birth this year, and so they've been having these Jane Jacobs walks in cities throughout the world, where community members walk around, observe what they're seeing, past, present, and future in their communities, and take notes, drawings, report on it. And so I've been in touch with Mary Brindle, and we're meeting for coffee to talk about maybe having a Jane Jacobs walk in Edina. And so I will let you all know if that moves forward, and hopefully we'll be able to round up some people to kind of, organize it and to find people to do it. But it sounded like a great way to move forward what we had talked about at this Vision Edina. So.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Any other member comments? Okay. The chair has a couple. I wanted to extend another thank you to Member Sussman for an excellent tour of the Jewish cemetery there off of France yesterday. We actually had Mary Brindle and her husband join us, as well as the city administrator, Scott Neal, come in. And it was really fascinating to see the history. And also, I think it was a comment that Joyce made to me. If you noticed how wonderfully preserved those gravestone markers are after being there for almost over 100 years. It's a well-designed and well-maintained legacy of our city, and I thought it was fascinating. I can only encourage, for those of you who were able to attend, great, and those that could not, we continue to hit Peter up every year for him to want to do that. But one comment that was made by Councilmember Brindle was, we were talking about this, and you could definitely tell for some of the people on the tour who didn't understand certain Jewish traditions and cultures and so on and so forth. And my comment was, this is what we should be doing across all faiths and all sort of, cultures and so on and so forth here in the city, because we learn so much from what other people's cultures and ceremonies and things are. And the fact that it's such a picturesque place that is almost permanently preserved because it's a cemetery. You're not going to be moving that. I thought it's just a real gem of the city, so I just wanted to extend a very heartfelt thank you for doing that again. Second was that over the last 2 weeks, I've been participating in there's been 2 work sessions with all the chairs of the different boards and commissions here in the city. One was with the staff and one was with the city council last week. And one thing I just want to report back to the board, our board, is the fact that there wants to be a lot more collaboration across the different city boards that was discussed at these 2 meetings. One thing I found very interesting was the fact that I sometimes think of when we have COAs and we've got a lot of community coming in to talk about it and discuss it. We've had this last couple of months, that sometimes it seems like, oh, how do we manage all that successfully and so on and so forth. And then I listen to our colleagues on the park board or the planning board or the transportation board or even health and human services board. I don't think we have much to really talk about compared to them. That I sort of got a lot of insight as to how they're part of what they do for the community and how much community interest there is in that is very powerful. And so I kind of look at it as everyone still thinks that the HPB is all about the district, but as we continue to do our different programs, our different, our plan of trying to get people's history of their home, as well as the other work that the subcommittees have done, only reinforces that I think that we can continue to get our messaging out about what we do. And it was interesting because the council was very interested in that. And I think our colleagues on the other boards were also very interested in that. So one example, given what you just said, Jennifer, is that when it comes to transportation, when it comes to planning, so on and so forth, there's a whole other element that they want to bring in to saying, how does historic preservation play a role to that? If they're talking about parks, how does that play a role to where we're all talking and doing? So what the chair people did was agreed that we would all start to share more information with one another on a more proactive basis, and then working with Scott and the staff of the city, how do we coordinate sort of what we're doing within what everybody else is doing, because there is often times where there will be some crossover to that. So it's kind of timely that you mention that, because that was just being discussed this last 2 weeks. So I think it should be interesting to see how we go into 2017. And then lastly is that with the plan, the comp plan coming up, and of course that was on everyone's top work plan agenda, I think people are very interested as to what they're working on and how that would then impact what we're doing and vice versa. So I thought that was very fascinating.
I think another interesting point how this comp plan will be different than previous ones is a member from the Planning Commission will work with each board and commission as they're working on their plan. So that'll add some extra guidance that I think will really be helpful.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. I really got a sense, not just from the staff, but also from the council, that level of collaboration is something that they're really eager to support and drive. And then what was really also interesting was the fact that how when we had our meeting 2 weeks ago without the city council, that there was a lot of dialogue as to how do the boards and the leadership with staff drive more information back to the council as to what's going on. A lot of people felt that sometimes they don't understand all the work that they do, and it kind of goes up, and then something doesn't get acted upon or doesn't get addressed or so on and so forth. What message does that send back to the boards and the volunteers who, like us, who are doing that they want to try to tighten that communication up a little bit more effectively. So I just think that that's a theme I think we're all going to see if we're participating not only on this board, but anything else in the community. There's going to be more of that, I think, happening at an accelerated rate over the next 6 to 12 months. So those are all of the chair comments. Any staff comments this evening?
I do have one comment. Our November meeting will be again on a Monday, and it'll be November 7th. And the reason being, the 8th.
Is there something on the 8th?
Well, something about an election?
Oh.
I don't know. So this is the correct date, Monday the 7th. So mark your calendar.
Great, thank you for that. Any other comments or things to share? Great, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much.